Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Big Ten Show. As you can see here, we got some Michigan stuff on our screen. I guess we are here with Michigan guy again, John D'Adamo, with some interesting news and stuff coming up in the Harbaugh situation. So, first things first, my name is Justin Adams. I am a host here and co-host over there, Sonny Verma on the end. We like to put him over there. Because that's where he belongs, third place. No, I'm just playing. And then John in the middle. John, I appreciate your time per usual. He's joined us before. Y'all have seen him before. So how you doing, John? What's going on?
I'm doing all right. I mean, this was definitely expected. It's definitely it's almost cathartic in a way for finally this like will he or won't he to be over. Harbaugh's officially going to the Chargers, and my first thought is good for you, coach. Go get your Super Bowl. I know you want one. You got a natty. So Harbaugh, it just in case you're not familiar, you guys are, but in case the people in the audience aren't familiar with the story. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In 2014, Michigan was in the dark ages. Okay. I went to the school and we were in the dark ages. Trust me. Okay. This was a 5-7 team, Brady Hoke, just mishandling personnel. Culture was in the shit, and it was just really not great. And so Jim Harbaugh was their shoot for the moon candidate. He was their the one that they really wanted. There were some other names thrown out there. Les Miles was thrown out there at various points. But Jim Harbaugh was the one that they wanted, and they got him. And he immediately turns around the program to 10-3, right? And then 10-3 again, and then you start to have a little bit of a dip. Jed Fish leaves, offense takes a dive, Spate gets injured, a lot of things happen. And the culture and everything, as kind of happens in the midpoint sometimes. Brian Kelly dealt with this at Notre Dame. You've got sometimes you have to revitalize things and shake things up. So he meets with Ward Manuel, athletic director, in 2020. He had 2 wins that year, and we almost lost to a team called Rutgers. If it wasn't for Cade McNamara playing some hero ball to win us that game, then that he might have gotten fired. So he goes and he talks to Ward, and he says, I'm not going to fire you. We go way back, to the 80s. You're one of our best quarterbacks, and you brought this team back and everything. But I'm going to ask you to take a 50% pay cut and put it in incentives instead. So if you hit certain milestones, we win a Big Ten, then you get paid, a couple million or 500K or whatever for the various things. And yeah, you're going to need to make some staff changes. And so Harbaugh goes and he makes a difficult decision. He fires Don Brown, who had been on the staff for 5 years, calls up his brother. He says, hey, let's, is there any, can you help me out? I might get fired, if we don't fix this. And he says, well, you can have, Mike McDonald, or you can have Jesse Minter. Mike McDonald gets picked. Then they install the Ravens defense. They also kind of demote Josh Gaddis as well, because they kind of install the Stanford 09 playbook. Mm-hmm. And then they start winning at a high level in 21, 22. Finally, they said he couldn't beat Ohio State. Then he goes and he beats Ohio State. Couldn't win the Big Ten championship. He goes and wins a Big Ten championship, and then another one. And then this year, the chorus was, can't win a playoff game, can't win a postseason game. Well, what happens? He brings back 78% returning production, 2023. I said on the show, this was the last dance. I said it 5 months ago on Michigan Wolverines Live that this was going to be the last year. I felt very strongly about that. Didn't know which NFL team necessarily, but it just felt like the last year for a lot of reasons. The returning production, just the where they were in the apex of college football. It just seemed like this was the year, because 2024, a lot of players obviously are going to be gone especially on offense.
Yeah.
So this felt like the year, obviously with the NCAA situation and the incoming sanctions and incoming things that are going to be happening. Obviously, Harbaugh didn't coach 6 games. But what happened was Sherrone Moore came into his own as a interim head coach, right? And learned on the fly how to be an interim head coach, already OC, O-line coach. And even Urban Meyer said, he gave Sherrone Moore his props. He said he has the toughest position group to coach. He has the toughest job, offensive coordinator, and then he has to oversee everything with head coach. So that all culminated in the situation where Sherrone Moore was made the coach in waiting. Potentially, not saying they won't look at other candidates, but that seems to be what's going on. And so I felt very confident that Harbaugh was going to probably leave. I just wasn't sure which job yet, but today it was made official. So there you go.
Yeah. And, on that, just a quick hitting thought, like, do you think if this scandal didn't happen, do you think that he still would have been gone to the NFL? I feel like a lot of people use that as a reason, but part of me feels like almost with the changing Big Ten and, with the chance to go out on top, I feel like this may have happened anyways. I'm just curious your opinion on that.
The answer is I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough
because John U. Bacon had just so he's a longtime author. For those who don't know, check him out on Twitter. But he posts a lot of the stuff that he's hearing because he has a lot of inside sources in the Michigan program, and et cetera. And apparently they had been working up until Wednesday afternoon on the contract, and they finally gave in on the immunity clause and the things that were being held up because Jim Harbaugh wanted immunity in case the NCAA comes down and just lobs a ridiculous sanction on Harbaugh. That's very possible, and Harbaugh has no control over that. And even if he's innocent, he could get held liable for Connor Stallions, so he wanted to make sure that he was protected and couldn't get fired for cause. And by the way, he's the first of many coaches that are going to be renegotiating their contract to add immunity, because now anytime a coach gets a level 1 violation, remember, they're now held accountable no matter what because of institutional control. So now you're going to see the major coaches, Kirby Smart, you're going to see it from even like Dabo when he's renegotiating. You're going to see it from Brian Kelly because he's trying to get some more money. You'll probably start to see the big coaches that have clout are going to get this added to their contract because one level 1 violation, and technically the school could fire them for cause. So yeah, I think that is part of it. But I think more than anything else, guys, he just wants the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I really do think it comes down to that. His brother beat him.
Yep.
And he got that literally one of the last plays of the game, get a Super Bowl at the Ravens. He was so close. And I think that's eaten away at him. And now he has an opportunity at the Chargers with Justin Herbert. They do have some pieces on that team, and he can bring in maybe a Trevor Keegan at line. He can bring in a Blake Corum as a backup running back and maybe eventually taking over as running back 1. He can bring in a Junior Colson or Mike Sanders still at a defense position, and other talent that he recruited and maybe faced against at other teams, right? Now, I'm not saying he's going to just turn it into the Los Angeles Wolverines, but I think that he, just like Pete Carroll, when Pete Carroll was going up from USC to the Seahawks, and he had a couple years of advantage because he knew all the players very well personally from recruiting them all. Even if he didn't win the recruiting, some of them were on his team. Some of them he faced off against. And so now Harbaugh is going to have that same advantage.
Yeah. And interesting to note, too, they do have the number 5 overall pick as well. So
right. Exactly.
So, John, what's your mood now? Obviously this has been going on for a month pretty much now. I mean, it's happened every offseason if we're going to be completely truthful. But now, obviously Ohio State's loading up. Your team itself was a very veteran-laden team. A lot of these guys are moving on, to the next level. Michigan is expected to take a step back, and now they've lost, the guy in charge of it all. Are you ready to, just kind of take a breather for a year and just kind of soak in that natty and just, or
A
are your
year.
expectations still
I'll
expectations still sky high? Like, let's.
I'll take a breather for 7 months. How about that? And then we're back to work. Yeah, I think that I don't. I mean, look, taking a step back, there's nowhere to go but down when you win the Natty. So that's the first thing. The good news is that we're headed into a 12-team playoff. So there is a real possibility that so Michigan, I actually just did the way too early offense depth chart for 2024. We'll be doing defense next week. So we did the offense one with Ronin Sports Media, TJ over there at Ronin Sports Media, and we broke it down. And I was thinking, holy crap, we got a lot of talent on this offense. It's just talent that hasn't seen the field much because of all the other talent that's about to head to the NFL. But like, I'm actually not feeling too bad about most of the position groups, even quarterback. I really like Alex Orji. I think he is a dynamic player and could be another like a Jalen Milroe type. Except we have a more competent offensive coordinator than Tommy Rees, whether it's Sherrone that stays in that position or whether it's Kurt Campbell or Mike Hart. I'd put any of them up against Tommy Rees any day. And I think that Alex Orji can sling it. He's got a couple passes in the spring game, his high school film, and he's going to work with Kurt Campbell most likely. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about the offense. I wasn't a couple days ago, but then I sat down and really studied it. So I think we could go 10-2 with losses to Texas, most likely Quinn Ewers, and then one other, maybe Oregon or Ohio State. That with our schedule, we have one of the toughest schedules next year in college football. This year, one of the easiest. Next year, we're one of the toughest. And we're playing a playoff team in the non-con. So with their quarterback returning. So that's a big thing. So I think we could go 10-2 and make the 12-team playoff. And then we have a chance to win it again. Now, I don't think we're going to win the national championship again, but it's theoretically possible if we make the 12-team playoff. So do I think we're going to take a step back? Yes. A step back from 15-0 to maybe, I don't know, 11-2 or 12-2, or I don't know. It's going to be a step back, but it's not going to be the step back that I think some people think it's going to be.
Yeah, and just in talking about that, it seems like potentially, as we alluded to before, there may be a specific coach that you're confident will retain a lot of these players and, they will see the field next year. Running through just a few of the names, and it's pretty much, it's really hard to wonder if it's anybody but Sherrone Moore, as we kind of talked about before. But, on the other candidates, what were some of the interesting ones, or what are some of the interesting ones that are still potentially in play? Jesse Minter, Brian Kelly, PJ Fleck, Leipold, like, were any of those like realistic, in your opinion, or any of those warmer than the others? What's your take on those guys?
Yeah. Well, I think that Jesse Minter is somebody who would be a very capable head coach. The issue with him is that he's almost definitely going with Harbaugh to the Chargers, based on everything I've seen. So he's going, Jay Harbaugh's going. That's pretty much it. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's not going to raid. Like, he has too much respect for Michigan and too much love for his alma mater to raid the staff. So that's probably going to be it.
So my question would be, if Minter was offered the job at Michigan, a head coaching job at Michigan, like, wouldn't he rather stay instead of just following Harbaugh to become a defensive coordinator?
Yes, the issue you have there, Sonny, is that he's not going to be offered the
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. I
job.
get it. Yeah.
But yes, in that hypothetical, I think that might change his mind quite a bit. But no, I think this has been decided for months. I think Harbaugh's known he's wanted to leave, and I think they've had both scenarios. Like, what happens if he stays, and then what do both coaching staffs look like if he goes? I think this has been decided already for quite some time. So Minner. If you look externally, the reality is the two names that I thought were the best names are gone now. And those two are Kalen DeBoer and Jed Fish. Kalen DeBoer obviously just took Washington from a 4-8 team to the national championship, and created the #1 passing offense in all of college football. And then Jed Fish, guess what? He was a big part of our offensive success in 15 and 16. When he left and Drevno and Pep Hamilton were responsible for the offense, y'all saw it on Amazon's All or Nothing. It was very much nothing. And John O'Korn was the quarterback, and it was a disaster. So I have a lot of respect for Jed Fish and what he's done to turn around an Arizona program that was also in the dumpster. The problem is with those hires, as well as some of the absurd names like Brian Kelly's agent floating Brian Kelly so he can make a couple more million at LSU, or hey, how about PJ Fleck row the boat, or some of these names that we've heard in the past. The issue is that then that would create a cataclysmic change in the program because they'd want to bring in their people. A lot of turnover in recruiting and transfer and everything else. And that's why I believe it's been predetermined that Sherrone Moore, if there was any doubt, then Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State games probably solidified it, that Sherrone Moore is going to be the head coach. We've heard it from multiple sources, ESPN especially, that he's been basically offered the job, but they can't announce it for 7 days due to Michigan state law. So we'll probably have unless they waive it, because you might get Gretchen Whitmer or the Attorney General to be like, we'll just waive that for you. I don't know if they can do that. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But if they can't, then expect an announcement on the 31st or the 1st of February announcing Sherrone Moore as the head coach.
So if that is the case, which obviously I think everyone here agrees looks very likely, what's your mood? What's more strengths? What are you kind of concerned about? What do you think? What kind of hands do you think the program is in moving forward?
Yeah, and I was going to bounce a similar question. If you had to name 3 things that maybe he doesn't do that Harbaugh did, or that are the 3 biggest concerns, and just the 3 that you think are just kind of like, this concerns me, this worries me in comparison to what Harbaugh was able to do.
Well, I think it's kind of elephant in the room stuff. Like, he's had 4 games as interim head coach. Yeah. And Jim Harbaugh's had an entire career at the NFL and college as head coach, right? So obviously experience is a thing. But what I'm cautiously optimistic for the following reasons. Sherrone Moore is going to retain most of this coaching staff and I believe most of the recruits and most of the players that are on the team are going to stay on the team. You'll see a little bit of attrition, but I don't think you're going to see much. And I think you're actually going to see recruiting ramp up now, because I think a lot of recruits were just waiting for this to happen one way or another. And now the head coach is set. So yeah, I mean, experience is probably one that I'd be worried about. Depending on the personnel decisions that he makes, especially at defensive coordinator, Clinkscale is probably who's going to get it. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if they look at Jim Leonard, who's a name that's kind of continually been thrown out for Big Ten teams like USC. I thought they were going to get him, and they didn't. And I was pretty surprised about that. And so yeah, Michigan could go with an external hire there. to shore a very experienced hire. But you also have Kirk Campbell, who's an experienced, he was, an offensive coordinator before and has a lot of experience in offense and quarterbacks. Mike Hart has now been in the program for a bunch of years, and he was at Indiana before that. And, so I think that, the experience factor, the personnel decisions, and a third one, I think it's going to depend on, once he steps away from O-line, because I think he might need to step away from O-line. Apparently Grant Newsome might be promoted to O-line. That's one name that's been thrown out. It's just, can they maintain the excellence that Sherrone Moore was able to do, laser focusing on that position and winning the Joe Moore Award. So those would be the three: experience, personnel, and O-line.
And so, off of that, what is coming off of, a national championship and the expectations, coming in the next year, while, I believe Sherrone Moore is going to have higher expectations just because of the things we mentioned. A new coach with a new staff would have those things built into, if they struggle. But in this case, with Sherrone Moore, potentially being the guy that takes over, how do you measure success with him? And, in 5 years, do you think Sherrone Moore has this team competing for a national championship, or do you think he can win a national championship with this team? What are your thoughts on that, and how do we measure success with this Michigan team next year and going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Michigan has taken a step up in the echelon of college football, so it's no longer 9 or 10 wins is what we're hoping for. And occasionally you beat Ohio State, or occasionally you get a Big Ten. I think that now we're at the point when a fair expectation is we want to be contending for a playoff spot and ideally a national championship every couple of years. I mean, I think that was not the expectations back in 2015, 2016. We just wanted to beat Ohio State, period. And 10 wins with a win against Ohio State, that would be gravy. But now I really do think with this national championship, the expectations are a little higher. Not the first year. I think everyone expects, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the most rosy, I don't think I haven't heard a single person say Michigan's going 12-0 again. I think there's going to be a couple of L's. It's a very tough schedule. And especially, you're going to have a downgrade in quarterback. There's no way around it. Running back is stacked. Wide receiver has never been great. O-line, there might be a downgrade there because there's going to be a lot of rotation. Defense is basically the same with a few changes. That's a championship defense still. And I think people are going to be shocked at how good it is still. So I think that, like I said, I think 10-2 is very possible. If they can get Alex Orji working, or if they get a transfer quarterback, if they don't like what they see in Alex Orji, and then watch Jaden Davis start to rise that depth chart. The goal is he rises the depth chart over spring and fall camp. He rises the depth chart over the 12 games. And then hopefully by, the end of the season, Jaden Davis is the front runner for QB1, in 2025. So I think 10-2, and then we'll see from there.
How patient do you think fans will be with Moore? Like, does the honeymoon period carry over because he was under Jim Harbaugh, or do you think I mean, you said 10-2, but then you also told me you played Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon, who I think could very well be 3 of the 4 best teams in the country next year. So, as a neutral observer, I can say those 3 could, likely be losses. And then I haven't seen the rest of your schedule, but let's just say there's one more loss in there. Now you're at 8-4. Mm-hmm. 8-4, it feels a lot different than 10-2 does, especially when you're coming off a national championship. What kind of grace period do you think Moore would get?
Well, if Michigan goes 8-4, I think you're going to see a little bit of dissatisfaction, but we're not the Ohio State fan base. Okay. I have said repeatedly, I mean, taking that job, the Ohio State head coaching job, it has to be one of the toughest jobs on your physical and mental health and emotional health. And, I have no love for Ryan Day, but I feel for him a little bit. I mean, the man has lost 3 Big Ten games in his career, and they're calling for his job if he loses to Michigan again. That's absurd.
It's ridiculous.
And I don't think that's fair. And honestly, I think that the fan base will have more reasonable expectations for Sherrone Moore. There's absolutely a honeymoon period. They just won a national championship. They're going to ride that high for a year or two. It's tough to sustain that level of greatness, especially when, let's be honest, Michigan's NIL, Michigan's moves in that department haven't been great. Ohio State has been breaking out the money cannon left and right. They hire Ross Bjork, who's basically known for the money machine over at Texas A&M. So like they're rolling. Michigan's struggled in NIL in the past. So I think the expectations of the fan base are probably, I can't speak for the entire fan base, but 8-4 would be a little bit of a disappointment, but understandable with the schedule and with like you said, the caliber of the competition, because that would probably mean losses to Ohio State and Columbus, Oregon, Texas, and then maybe USC or someone else that's on the schedule. So those would be reasonable losses, in my opinion.
I think Sonny might be extremely overestimating these Pac-12 teams and how they're going to do in this Big Ten. And Texas, yeah. I mean, I still think Michigan's going to have the better team than those two next year.
Than Texas?
Yeah. Texas.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Texas
I predicted Texas in the playoff this year. I think Michigan wins that game next year.
I would love it.
On pure physicality.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. Watch.
I didn't say Pac-12 teams. I'm just talking about Oregon. Oregon's a different beast than
when I was talking about physicality, I was talking about Texas. Oregon may be a different beast, but they couldn't beat Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, we'll see. We're on year 3 now of Lanning. He seems to have that program on kind of a rocket ship trajectory.
I'm not saying that they're going to be 2 touchdown favorites. I just think that they are the better team over those 2 teams.
Oh, well. So in your scenario, Justin, 10-2, it seems very realistic.
I think 10-2
with that analysis.
I think 10-2 is probably realistic. I would if I was going down their schedule, I'd probably pick them to beat Oregon and Texas for sure. I'd have to look at the rest of it and see, and I'd probably pick up to slip a game that they shouldn't lose.
Illinois, the game I'm going to, the Red Grange 100-year game in Champaign.
I wanted it to be Nebraska this past year.
I'll see you there, John.
Revenge game for you guys. Yeah.
Yep. Sonny, anything else before we sign off here?
No, not really, John. It's I feel for you just because I know this has kind of been an ongoing thing.
I don't. You got a natty.
Long.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
We got a natty. And the sentiment is basically go be great, coach. Go get your Super Bowl. We got Sherrone Moore. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what the feeling is.
He'll have time for sure. Yep. So, all right. Well, yep. Thanks, John, again for joining us. Plug your channels, plug your show. Let us know what's going on over there with Michigan, the Michigan channel and stuff.
Yeah. So I do 2 shows right now on the Voice of College Football. So Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have the Ocho, which Sonny was on to rep Illinois last week. And then coming up, Justin and John Johnston from Corn Nation are going to be with me breaking down the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And my goal is to get through every team, all 18. So we'll have reps from Northwestern. We'll have reps from Washington and from USC and UC. Like, I want them all, and I think it'll be great content for the offseason, just so that people can learn about some teams not named Michigan and Ohio State. for once. And I think that'll bring something a little different to the table.
For sure.
And then Tuesday night, Michigan Wolverines live, 8 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday night.
Yep. And just to clarify too, those are, you can join in the conversation over there. Those are live shows. So feel free to hop over there and join in the conversation as well. They take the comments and stuff like that. So give your thoughts and all that while they're streaming over there, and join us next Monday. So
absolutely.
All right, John. Well, thanks again. I appreciate getting in here and getting your thoughts on this whole Michigan situation. It's been a lot of stuff going on here lately. So I know your hands are full. So again, really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.